Hey everyone, it's Jakov, and I'm here today with yet another video for Total War The Dawnless Days. Today's video being a battle replay of me fighting against a computer. In today's video, my army is going to be a tier 2 Dunlending army, fighting against a kind of equivalent Rohan army, kind of as a showcase of what kind of army you can be expected to field when playing as the Dunlendings, and what type of opponents you'll be expected to face off against. As I am facing off against a computer, keep in mind I'm not exactly going to be using a lot of really advanced moves against it, nor against me. This is again more of a showcase kind of video. If you guys are new here, Dawnless Days is a mod for Total War Attila, and I really do encourage you guys to play it. If you guys kind of like the sound of what you're hearing, please like and subscribe. We really appreciate it here. With all that said, we're going to press play and we'll begin checking out both of the armies. Actually, we'll put into slow motion first. And here we've got the Dunlending army, and it's very much an infantry-based army. We've got the general unit at the back, the Blood Avengers, so heavy shock infantry. Then, serving in the rest of their reserve, they've got a unit of the Dunherd Chosen, which is it still the same unit? No, it's a different unit. A lighter unit of shock infantry. Then we've got a unit of the Dunherd Marauders, one of the few cavalry units that they can field. And then supporting them, we've got a unit of the Warlords Wolf Tamers, which is a unit I just really like because the wolves, it's just cool. Then supporting them in the front, we've got a couple of units of the Tribal Warriors. They're pretty light bronze tier infantry. That's the starting unit more or less. Then a unit of the Warlords Bloodsworn, bit more heavily armoured clubmen. In front of them we've got a couple of units of the Tribal Levies, and a unit of the Elder Spearmen, who are a bit more advanced, a bit more professional, as you can see by the way they're equipped compared to the Tribal Levies. And then in front of them we've got a couple of units of the Tribal Hunters, which are the starting archer unit for the faction. And then we've got a couple of units of Elder Archers, who are a bit more advanced. Then to protect their flanks, I've placed a couple units of caltrops. I don't know if units is the right way to describe it, but yeah, we've got some caltrops, we've got some sharp stone beds to slow down enemy cavalry, and on the other side we've got more caltrops too. And this kind of makes sense if you're fighting against a heavily armoured and mobile cavalry force. It makes sense to try and pick and choose how you fight to limit their movement. Looking at the Rohan force, they've got a couple of units of the Arid of the Gap. They're mounted horse archers. We've got units of the Scouts of Rohan, which is their beginning shock cavalry unit, I should say. Very cool one at that. A couple of units of the Esquires of Rohan. In front of them, in the front line, we've got front line, metaphorically speaking, of course, because it's all one big line as it is. A couple of units of Axe Thanes, Sword Thanes. Then in the back, some Aorling Men-at-Arms, a bit more heavily armoured spearmen. And I think this is their... no, it's not their general unit. Then over here we've got some of the Riders of Rohan themselves, the iconic unit as it were. More of the Scouts of Rohan, more Scouts, and then their general unit, which I think is the Knights of the Mark. So yeah, very much a more or less heavy cavalry oriented force, but with some infantry. Looking at the balance of power, the Rohirrim army is far smaller, but they normally tend to be just because of their predisponderance towards heavy cavalry, whereas the Dunlending army that I'm fielding in this battle has a lot more infantry, so it's quite a bit larger. As we can see, this is actually a scene that is depicted, or rather spoken about, in one of the source books for Lord of the Rings, where they talk about how one of the Rohirrim strategies for war is just to line up their army, or at least Arid units of their army, I'm saying, on a hill, and essentially just let enemy forces see them, because just the sight of a large force of Rohirrim riding up a hill and just staring down at you is more than enough to send most enemies of Rohan running for the hills. So yeah, the cavalry is more or less in one large line. Put the infantry in the middle, cavalry on the flanks, fairly standard stuff. And they're just advancing bit by bit. We'll pull back to the infantry over here of the Dunlendings. We'll see what the battle looks like from their perspective. And yeah, a large amount of cavalry incoming. There's something about these guys I just really appreciate. I don't know. Like, I've heard people say that the Dunlendings were kind of bland in comparison to the other factions, but personally I think they're quite cool given that they're like a fusion of Walderman and Isengard in terms of equipment. And because it's going to take a while for their army to come, yeah, we may as well speed it up a little bit. Having sped it up, we're going to check out how both armies respond. To let you know, may as well go back. So, the archers are pulling back behind the spearmen, which is smart, you don't want to get caught out by the cavalry. The Aod of the Gap are trying to shoot, and the issue is these tribal levies can't make a great spear wall. And then these guys charge right into the caltrops, it blunts their charge a bit. The dogs are released, or the wolves, as is the cavalry to try and ward them off. More scouts of Rohan emerge. And over here, the riders of Rohan have been picked off. In goes the general unit charging, and Blood Avengers are really open to damage here, just because if these Aod of the Gap open fire on them, they'd have been mowed down significantly. But yeah, they're pulling back in time to avoid the counter charge. They've partially broken. I'm going to put into slow motion for a bit so we can check it out. They've partially broken through over here, but the shock infantry has kind of blunted that, and the swarming using the infantry reserves in the back has kind of caught them off guard. The Riders of Rohan unit here was broken, falling back. Over here, the infantry has joined in one big clash, which makes sense. It'd be a better plan to use the infantry to break through the Dunlending infantry rather than just using cavalry and frontal charges. Over here, the Esquires of Rohan, and there's another unit that joined up with them, I think. Well, only one. Okay, two units. And the Scouts of Rohan, facing off against the Spearmen. So yeah, anchoring the line with the Spearmen was a decision that I made just because I figured if one corner of the line breaks, the rest of the line's going to be rolled down bit by bit. So it's better to strengthen the flanks as much as possible. The Elder Archers are opening fire as they can. Turning over here, the Riders of Rohan that charged in were obliterated. And we'll press play again. They were counter-charged by the shock infantry, yep. And over here they're charging back in again. However, the Dunherd Marauders are somewhat tougher than the Scouts of Rohan in this battle. And they're pulling out. Dunherd Marauders remain. The archers are providing one massive battery. They're just opening fire on anything that comes near. In comes the Knights of the Mark. And battle has joined again. Their mounted archers are still firing. The remnants of their units are charging around. But now the Knights of the Mark have been picked off by the archers and the shock infantry. And while breaking away from battle is a good idea, you've got to be careful with how you do it. You've got to do it at the right time, because otherwise you leave your forces open to being picked off from the rear. This is kind of a reversal of fortune now, in that these units are flanked around behind their own lines to get behind the enemy lines. So yeah, it's kind of a swap over effect. And these Scouts of Rohan are charging in. Are they going to make it in time? No, they break off. Is it to support their general? Yeah, I believe so. They keep going. Knights of the Mark are being pushed back. Again, it's a case of using local superiority. Overall, Rohan probably has got more strength, but by limiting how they can deploy their strength, well, Dunland ends up getting the edge. And now the Elder Archers have been thrown into melee. Horse Archers are shooting into the back, but they're out of ammunition. If I was them, I would have just charged. Here and now, it'd be worth it to break these guys. The Rohan General has shattered, and yeah, it's essentially become mopping up duty at this point. Now it's just a massive sandwich against these Esquires of Rohan, surrounded on all sides. But once these guys go, and here comes the Scout Cavalry. And Jesus, that was brutal. That was less like he got hit by a bow and more by a ballista or something. They're pulling out. Archers are still going strong. This unit of spearmen over here is still performing, and they're charging the archers, which, yep, may as well get rid of the ranged support now. And they are just completely drenched in gore by this point. And this last unit tries to mow down these archers. They don't try, they do mow them down. But the Arid of the Gap aren't the best lancers around. Although given what they're fighting against, they should win. But now they're getting flanking fire, which puts them in a significant amount of danger. But again, bit by bit breaking down the army. Once they pick off all these two units over here, they can then solidify their grasp over these guys. And here we have the final stand of the spearmen, who are being shot in the back as they get charged from the front. And yep, I'm pretty sure they've broken. The last unit of Arid of the Gap is broken, shattered. And yeah, an Pyrrhic victory for the Dunlendings. Yeah, I'd say that sums up the battle. Yeah, the Dunlending army won, and given the numerical superiority they had, that wasn't necessarily guaranteed, but it did certainly help. But even so, they came out of it with significant casualties. So, ending the replay, we're going to check out both sides' stats and see how they did. So looking at my Dunlending army, yeah, lost over 1,600 soldiers, only 600 remaining. So, almost 75% casualties, compared to Rohan, who lost, yeah, came out of about 75% casualties, no, even worse, something like 90% casualties, with only 185 soldiers surviving the battle. So, looking at the Blood Avengers, they got 201 kills, very good. Warlord's Bloodsworn 61, fairly alright. Dunherd Chosen only 35, very iffy, but I'm pretty sure they were fighting toe-to-toe with cavalry, so it kind of makes sense they didn't get as great as they could have. Tribal Warriors 108, very good for an underpowered unit. 21 for these guys, not exactly the best in the world. 78, that's fairly alright. 7 quite poor. 66 for the Elder Spearmen is disappointing, given they're meant to be a cut above. Then for the Archers, the Suno Tribal Hunters got 10 and 26, it's quite poor. These guys got 58, which is better than nothing. 16 for the Elder Archers here, not great at all. 132 for the Marauders, quite good, very good. And the Warlord Wolf Tamers only got 55 kills, which, yeah, not exactly great. But then again, given that the enemy army was comprised mostly of cavalry, which means quality over quantity, it makes sense that these guys did overall get less kills per unit. Whereas looking at Rohan, Knights of the Mark got 181 kills, which is very good. Their Sword Thanes got 244. The Axe Thanes got 233. This is absolutely amazing. The Aerling Men-at-Arms got 270, which is fantastic. 189 for their Squires of Rohan. 171 for the Scouts of Rohan, which is great. 55 for these guys, which isn't that great. 114 for these dudes, very good. Only 2 for the Riders of Rohan, which is massively disappointing, given that they were one of the stronger units that was fielded in this army. 35 for these guys, which is also quite disappointing. At 89, which is fairly alright, but it could be better for the Aerid of the Gap. So yeah, there we have it, guys. A battle replay showing what a potential field army of Rohan at a tier 2 level would be facing off against a Dunlending army of a tier 2 level, and vice versa, I should say. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. It might not seem like much for such a small channel, but it is massively appreciated. Rest assured there will be more videos coming up in the future, including both battle replays of mine and battle replays sent in to me by subscribers. And if you guys do want to send in battle replays for me to cover, feel free to send them to me over in my email, which is linked in my channel's description, or send them to me over the Dawnless Days Discord server, or over the Last Alliance Total War Discord server. Either one will do perfectly. Well, there we have it, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed the video, and with all that said, this is your host Jakov, signing out.